Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be back to host this Bubbles event again. So we have a wonderful party today. We've got the fabulous Kerry Gregory, a gemologist who needs no introduction. We then have Mako Eaton-Kinjo from Green Rocks talking to us about laboratory grown diamonds. And we have our very own Ben Massey, who will be sharing some fabulous marketing insights and his amazing expertise. And I don't think, and never has it been more appropriate and more needed that we outreach and how we communicate with all of our customers. So, and myself, Helen Dimmick. If you don't know me, I'm an industry consultant, a gemologist, a diamond grader, but I also work in several different parts of the industry. So I actually work with my partner, Phil Ainsworth, in Ainsworth Jewellers. So I have a lot of retail experience at the moment. And I think what I want to talk to you about today is kind of where the industry is at the moment. Where's the jewellery trade? What's happening in the future? And how are jewellers responding? So with my various different hats, I will talk you through all of that. There's also a chat room, which I can see, and it's lovely. Everybody's saying good morning. So please let me know who's here, first of all. And if you've got any questions, it's great to post them there. And of course, we have the bubbles later on where we can actually break down into the chat rooms and talk about some fantastic themes that are most important. So let me tell you a little bit about where I am. So it's interesting. At the moment, I'm more focusing on client-based work. And I think that's really responsive of where the market is. I'm finding that I'm doing direct client work and much less trade work. And I think that's because we're all concentrating on sell out and sell through. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we're finding is selling, both for me and how that is reflected in national trends. So we are seeing that we are actually delighted by the sales performance. Since returning from lockdown, we're significantly up on prior year, but we're obviously very cautious. We've not made up for where we were over the lockdown, but this is really exciting. We're seeing that pent-up demand, there's a little bit of that. But I think that whereas people were going on holidays, they're now actually living for the moment and celebrating their relationships in a way that only jewellery can. So that's fantastic. We are seeing a wonderful rise, and this is reflected nationally. We're seeing a rise in coloured stones. I think, remember we did the birthstone, the rainbow gems over the summer period. And I think this is happy, celebratory, beautiful jewellery. And we're seeing that very much in both what we're presenting and what customers are asking for. We're seeing a rise in what we're going to call imperfect jewellery. So in diamonds, our customers are enjoying seeing old cut diamonds, which may not be as symmetrical, or diamonds with salt and pepper, with inclusions. And as Kerry Gregory will tell you, an inclusion is not a fault, it's a characteristic. And it's wonderful that we can celebrate, I think, nature. And I think after COVID, this is really where we were. We're listening to nature so much more. We're wanting to live for the moment. And we're really appreciating what is around us. In the store, I'm seeing slightly less branded sales, unless the brand has a significant meaning or a story. What we've done in Ainsworth Jewellers as well is we've taken out quite a bit of the white branded furniture. We've still kept the brands, but we've put them in our own furniture because the story that we're telling is the story of the business owners, of the brand, of the retail business itself. And I think that is really key. And that's why I think we're seeing this growth. And we know that that is echoed throughout with other people's success stories. The slides have consistently shown recently that footfall is down, but average transaction is up. And I think what this also shows you is that we have more time to spend with our customers. And I think it's important that we go back to basics. So, for example, I really want to make us all concentrate on our selling skills. Remember to take the time to welcome your customers into the store, maybe reassure them on what appropriate PPE you've put in place and what appropriate post-COVID measures you have so they feel safe and comfortable. Introduce yourself. I always tell customers who I am. I'm Phil Ainsworth, who's the owner of the business. I'm his fiance, but I'm a diamond grader, I'm a gemologist, but that I'm really pleased to meet them and can't wait to help them with whatever they're looking for. So I also think to remember to listen to your customers, ask them questions first. If it's a wonderful celebration, congratulate them. If it's a nice moment, if they got engaged or whatever the occasion is, because celebrating nice moments at this time is really, really crucial. So remember that two-way dialogue, listening, positioning, and then also checking. It's a very, very simple skill, but check in with your customers. How does that sound? What do you think? We can't officially offer drinks, but we've been having bottles of water at the ready, which we can give to people. And that that's going down really, really well. So it's a great time. I think that the jewellery industry is in, touch wood, a good place. I do want to emphasise in terms of the sellout, that it's great that we're starting to see some good figures, but let's not forget the importance of restocking, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but actually getting ready for Christmas. And I think we also need to think about the suppliers as well, and making sure that we all keep the stock turn going. So where are we at the moment? Well, I don't know about you, but the last 10 days just went really, really quiet for us. I think that with all the announcements that are coming, it's been really hard. You know, what people are a bit nervous again. But don't lose heart, because there's lots we can do in this time, and I think it will come back. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing when it's been quiet. We've been spending a lot of time getting the store looking really good. So a small amount of money, but for a lot of results, we have refurbished the store. We've relined the cabinets. We're really making sure that jewelry is the focus when you walk into the store. We have painted the staff room. It's a small thing, but to make sure that the staff have a really nice environment to go to, I think is really rewarding for them. Every Tuesday, we stay late, we get a pizza and a bottle of wine, and we reline the cabinets ourselves. We've probably saved hundreds of pounds, but the impact is really, really strong. But I do think as well, when this time is fairly quiet, it's about remembering to invest in training and invest in marketing and look at outreach. These are so crucial to make sure that, you know, we keep going and don't lose the confidence, because they're always the things that you pull back on, as well as restocking. And the last thing you want to find yourself is at Christmas without the right sort of stock. So how are we all responding? For me, I've never known a period so much where we've all pulled together. It's been phenomenal. Not only people in the industry, but also in our communities. We, for example, have had some fantastic support on marketing. And it's great that Ben's talking about this, because as jewellers, we're not experts in marketing. But we've had some fabulous advice from the business and development in Blackburn. They've taught us about how to post better videos, how to post better social media content. And we're really seeing a great effect from this. And you find that everybody reposts, and there's so much support for everybody doing various different things. So I really want to see that continue. We're also doing more outreach, and I encourage everybody to think out of the box. So, for example, we are doing a project with the local community college and also the local university. It's a live project. It's connected to a piece of jewellery, but there'll be some in-store decoration that goes on. We're asking the students to help us with a full 360 strategy on the outreach. And do you know what? I'm delighted to support the local youngsters, but also I think it's fantastic that we can listen to them, hear what they've got to say, wonderful, new, interesting opinions, but also it's new customers for us. It's people that might never have thought about us. So again, all of this is really, really pulling together. I also wanted to take a moment to think about the prices. We know that gold prices are rising rather exponentially at the moment, and there's been a little bit of concern about where this may take us. If anything, for our customers, it has renewed their appreciation of the value and the preciousness of fine metals and fine jewellery. So we find it reinforces their decision to invest in fine jewellery. And I think that's a wonderful thing to appreciate. There's also the opportunity of more people are selling jewellery, and if they can't afford the new pieces, they are remodelling. So our sales of repairs and remodelling are rising exponentially as well. But I think that's just really, really strong. So As jewelers as well, we're also responding as not only upgrading, but we're embracing more and more technology. We're now having to have our QR codes to help with track and trace. We are upgrading, both myself and Ainsworth Jewelers. We're in the process of upgrading our websites. We're looking at the importance of tracking SEO and all of the insights that enable us to draw traffic, not just to our online presence, but also in store. If you don't know this yourself, which I certainly didn't, then you can certainly find somebody that does know this. And if any of you are looking for support in your websites, then please let us know, because we can point you in the right direction of some fabulous, fabulous resources. So without further ado, I want to actually bring in the wonderful Kerry Gregory. Kerry, if you can switch your camera on and we can say hello to you. There she is. For those of you that don't know Kerry, Kerry is a gemologist, but she's the most fabulous lady who I have to say has been the most incredible support to me personally and professionally during lockdown. I'm conscious that I trained as a gemologist actually almost 20 years ago. And if you want a real gemologist, then you talk to Kerry. But she's fantastic at reassuring, checking me on some of the work that I'm doing, and really helping me with continual professional development. She's also just the most fabulous lady. I love her. And you've only got to look at her to see what an amazing person she is. Good morning, Kerry. And please tell us what you're wearing as well.
Morning, Helen. Thank you so much for that introduction. And this might turn into a little bit of a mutual admiration society, but that's that's exactly how I feel about you too. I don't think it's one person supporting the other. I think that's the way that we're all doing this now. We're all more likely to reach out for help with somebody, and you've absolutely supported me during this time. That morning, which you probably hate me for saying, that morning when both of us had awful hair and no makeup on and sitting in our pajamas having that call when both of us were a bit low, it really made the difference. And I think, if we can all do that, and we can all find somebody who we can have that comfortable space with, and also just check in with people and just go, how are you doing this week? Or if you've seen them post on Facebook or something that they're having a bit of a bad week, just send them a text, how are you doing? I think that's really important, and I know so many other people have done that, and throughout my career I've had that. You said about me being a proper gemologist. I'm still not sure I feel like a proper gemologist, and I see in the chat that Alan Hodgkinson is here, and he's like one of my absolute heroes. I remember meeting him, and I was like a teenager meeting a pop star, and he's like a real human, and he just chats to you and he just says hello and he just helps you. And I've always aspired to be that way, to help other people, because I've had so much help myself. So I don't think it's difficult to do, is it? And to answer the question that you actually asked, what am I wearing? This is one of my favorite necklaces here. Actually, both of them are two favorite necklaces. The first one is a gin decanter label, which I have turned into a necklace that I still need to send off to the assay office for a change of use certificate, because it is no longer a decanter label. I am mostly full of gin, so it's still a factual statement, but I do need to send it to the assay office to get change of use. And the other one, this is a glass filled and dyed ruby, sapphire and emerald necklace. It's cheap as chips, but it's just one of those things that's fabulous and goes with so much stuff. And it's just a way that you can use coloured stones as sort of, I suppose, demi-luxe costume jewelry, where it's mounted in silver. They're real coloured stones. Yes, they've been treated, but the treatment means that I can afford something beautiful that's great with what you're wearing. So it's just all sorts of different ways that you can pull coloured stones into your everyday outfits.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And also, I just want to open up a conversation that actually you and I shared a little bit before, but as well as talking about what the trends are and what you're wearing, we also talked about new opportunities. And I think there's some incredible initiatives coming out of the NAJ. There is also, now we know, crafted in the UK, which we're personally celebrating at Ainsworth. But just want to draw everyone's attention to some new dialogue that's happening. I think you'll all be aware that with the NAJ, with my NAJ hat on, I had hosted a visit out to Mumbai earlier on in this year, and there are so many bilateral trade opportunities that are coming out from that, and we have a panel discussion to see how we can take that forward on Monday. But I think it's about looking, and now, isn't it, about new opportunities, new markets, working together, and I think that all these trends that we've talked about, there are opportunities in India and in the UK to fulfill those. So it's working together, like we say, just the two of us within our country and across the world. So there is so much that's happening out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, those two initiatives are a really useful way of sort of illustrating what's happening in the world right now. What you're seeing a lot in the UK is a lot more people are steering away from.
Oh, I don't know if you're all seeing that. I wonder. Just frozen. She's back.
I'm back.
Sorry, you just froze on us,
Oh,
Kerry.
sorry. What was I waffling on about? I was saying that the two things that you talked about are really great opportunities. I think there's a real feeling in the UK at the moment that people want things that they can connect to a story. They want to know who the maker was. They want to know that it's doing no harm. More than that, they want to know that it's doing some good. If they can support a local craft person, you're still going to get the same people who will Google and they'll want the cheapest price. But there is a huge amount of consumers out there who want to feel connected to their jewelry. They want it to be emotional and they want it to be a story. So Created in the UK represents a massive opportunity for that. But that said, there are still some things that we're not able to do in the UK, or we're not able to do economically in the UK. And so then these bilateral trade agreements and working with companies in India are a real opportunity to spread the wealth, spread the love, and have different things. So from my business, my point of view, something that's a real opportunity there is I work with recycled gemstones. And there's a real difficulty in working with recycled gemstones because it costs a lot of money to do something with them. And because they're gemstones that have been used before, sometimes they're damaged, sometimes they're scratched, but they're still a viable natural resource. Someone has dug them out of the ground and, you know, they've gone through that whole mine to market process, and now they're being recycled. But to get quartz recut in the UK at the moment is just not economically viable. So India is a prime example where I can polish so that it gives people the opportunity to use recycled material, but by doing that it gives other people who are training maybe in other countries the opportunity to work on stones, and everybody benefits.
That's fabulous. Well, from two ladies slightly in the rough to polished perfection, I'm going to hand over to you now, Kerry. I'm really looking forward to listening to modern moissanite, because as we all know, everything changes, and like you've said, there's a lot to learn from. So, and that's happened recently. So, over to you, Kerry. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Helen. Okay. Bear with me. So there you go. Right, I should have now my screen up there that you can see. So my title of what I'm talking about today is Modern Moissanite, What to Look For Now. I've chosen this because there have been a lot of changes in the moissanite product that we've seen. It's been out in the market for 22 years now. And when I'm talking to my clients and talking to my students, a lot of them aren't aware of some of the changes that have happened. So I just thought it would be a really useful opportunity to kind of give a very quick whistle-stop tour of what has happened. Not everything, I can't tell you everything that's happened in the last 22 years, but the things that I think are key things that people who are in the jewelry industry right now should know about moissanite. So starting with, why me? Why have the NAJ asked me to present to you? So I'm going to give you the reasons why I think I have been chosen, that hopefully will give you a bit of background as to why I'm talking to you today. So the first thing is I am a highly qualified gemologist. I am qualified with both the Gem A and GIA. I hold both of their gemology diplomas and both of their diamond diplomas, and I constantly learn, trade, read trade journals, constantly educate myself. So whilst I'm qualified, I'm also very practically adept as well. Hopefully I'm a very skilled teacher. I would say that that's proven in the results. I consistently achieve a high proportion of distinction results with my students than is the average, and I get fantastic feedback from when I'm teaching to people. One of the main things that people will often say is that they just get it, is that it's similar to Alan actually, because this is where I learn, is taking something really complex and going, what do they really need to know, boiling it down and trying to make it easy. So hopefully that is what I will do for you today. And I have huge practical experience. None of this is theory to me. I have been a practical gemologist since I started in the trade 21 years ago. When I was studying to be a gemologist, I have always tested gemstones. In my career, I've been in opportunities where I have tested literally thousands of gemstones per day. So it's not something that I just talk about. It is something that I do on an almost daily basis. I'm an award-winning business. I'm very proud to be the current holder of the NAJ Service Provider of the Year. So hopefully the NAJ and my customers think that I offer a fantastic service to you all. And I suppose the proof of the pudding for me, why I should be talking about moissanite, is in my previous role working for a large pawnbrokers, I saved them around about £1 million a year. That was because I wrote, implemented and started a training process on how to spot synthetic moissanite against diamond. Before I started that project, we used to take in as a company around about 20 stones a week that we'd paid for as diamonds. In the first year after we did that training, we used to get around about 20 a year, which resulted in around about a £1 million a year saving to the company. So it's something that I do, this particular topic, I really do have some experience in. And what I will say is, after I've said all of that, I am not modest. I do have lots of very good points. Modesty is not one of them. So sorry about that. But I also don't see any point in having false modesty. There's no point me being up here and you having no faith in what I'm going to say. So hopefully that gives you faith that I know what I'm talking about. So moving on, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about what is moissanite. So to define it. I'm going to talk about how it's changed. As I said, it's been on the market as a gem material for 22 years now, and there have been quite a few changes in that time, which we're going to run down, and what to look out for, both in terms of opportunities and threats when it comes to moissanite. So what is moissanite? In its most basic form, moissanite is a mineral. It is the mineral silicon carbide. Moissanite itself was named in 1905 after this chap on the screen, who is he's called Henry Moissan, but his full name I think is Frederick something or other, but he's known as Henry Moissan. He was a French mineralogist. He did a huge amount of research onto trying to manufacture diamonds and looking at ways that diamonds form and those sorts of things, and looking at carbides. He discovered moissanite, silicon carbide in that form, in a meteorite. It was found in the Canyon Diablo in Arizona in 1893. And at first, he identified it as a diamond. He didn't identify it as silicon carbide, as the material that we know as moissanite, until 1904, and then it was named after him in 1905. Interestingly, 2 years before that, silicon carbide had been made artificially. So before it was even found in nature, we had found a way to make it artificially. So actually, in terms of our discovery as humans, artificial silicon carbide, artificial moissanite, existed before we knew about the natural version. The natural version of moissanite is not like what we see in jewelry. It's incredibly tiny crystals. It occurs in, as I say, meteorites. It also occurs in ultramafic rocks. So things like kimberlite, that diamond occurs in, lamprite, that diamond occurs in, those sorts of rocks. So it isn't something that is usable to us as a gemstone. It's also not usable to us in its natural form for industrial purposes, which is one of the main uses of it. Silicon carbide is also known as carborundum, and it is used as an abrasive in industry. But for all intents and purposes, the natural moissanite is a mineral curiosity. It's a collector's thing. It isn't something that as humans we use an awful lot. We only use the artificial or the manufactured version of silicon carbide or moissanite. So moving on then to what is gem moissanite? The basic description of that is it is a synthetic gemstone. So when we're talking about moissanite in the gem industry, we should more correctly call it synthetic moissanite. Now in gemology, there's a very specific definition of the term synthetic. It doesn't just mean man-made, it doesn't mean fake, it doesn't mean false, it doesn't mean any of those things. It specifically means an artificial, i.e. man-made, a man-made, and by man I mean the genus of man, not necessarily somebody with testes. So it is a man-made version of something that occurs in nature. It has the same chemical composition and it has the same crystal structure. In this instance, the chemical composition is silicon carbide, SiC, and the crystal structure is hexagonal, if any of you are nerds out there and you want to know those things. So in its most basic definition, That's what synthetic moissanite is that we use in gem terms. It is a synthetic gemstone, a man-made gemstone that replicates something in nature. It is seen as a diamond alternative. It's the company that originally had the patent and originally manufactured this, Charles and Coulvard. When you look at their marketing material, they don't think that it is a diamond imitation. They class it as superior to diamond. It has different properties that we'll investigate shortly that are slightly different to diamonds, but it is certainly a diamond alternative, whether you look at it as a diamond imitation or whether you look at it as an alternative that people can choose over diamonds. That is what it is. It does resemble diamond really quite closely, and so anything that resembles diamond really quite closely can be used as a diamond imitation or a diamond alternative. And there's a slight difference between those two terms. If you look at diamond imitation, that might then have a negative connotation, but if you look at something as a diamond alternative from the point of retail, that's a choice, and that's a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. And as Helen said earlier, I tend to try and have positive attitudes about gemstones. I love synthetic gemstones. I love treated gemstones. I love composite gemstones. I love all of these things. I love the fact that with our ingenuity, we can take a natural product, or we can take natural products, or we can produce things that give the customer choice. It gives them a range of options and it gives them a range of values, with the one proviso that they know what they're buying. In order for the customer to know what they're buying, we need to know what we're buying and selling, and we need to educate them. So as long as the customer is buying in an educated fashion, they have the information they need to make an informed decision. I love all types of gemstones. So I see moissanite as a diamond alternative, not necessarily a diamond imitation. And so, as I've just said, it represents a choice for our customers. So then moving on again. What did synthetic moissanite look like? I remember when I first started in the jewelry industry, it was a relatively new thing, and jewelers up and down the country were losing their minds over this stuff. In the same way they did in the 70s when cubic zirconia came out. We're never going to be able to tell. We're constantly going to be buying these things thinking they're diamonds. What are we going to do? And there was this huge panic, which jewelers tend to do, in my experience. Rather than going, wow, look at this opportunity, they go, oh my god, it's going to be the end of us, we're all going to die, what are we going to do? And as it is, it wasn't really a problem. If you're used to looking at gemstones, synthetic moissanite, certainly 20 odd years ago, doesn't really look like a diamond if you have a look at it closely. So running down the features of what moissanite used to look like when it came out on the market. It was primarily cut in round brilliant cut. This is because that's the most common cut. It's the most commercial cut, and it's the one bought and sold most often. And remember, I'm talking about the old style moissanite here, not what you see on the market today. So generally, when it originally came on the market, it was usually round brilliant cut. The colour was always tinted. When it first came on the market, you couldn't get a whiter moissanite than around about JK colour. It always has this slightly greenish yellow colour that you can see in that image there. That is an image of an old moissanite there. Size, it was generally manufactured and sold in sizes over 50 points. You could get smaller stones, but that was rare. You usually didn't get melee stones. You usually didn't get accent stones. It was usually primary stones in a ring or as a 3 stone. So usually at least half a carat in weight. In clarity, originally they were usually included. They did make some steps towards that, but regularly included and really usually included. They would frequently have, I don't know whether you can see, yes you can see my point. So you can see these lines radiating out here. These are what are sometimes called stringers. And these are stress features as the stone was being manufactured. And you would see those as lines that came directly down from the table of the stone. And that was a really common feature in the original moissanites that we saw. And the prevalence, there was only one manufacturer, there was only one person who had the patent to make and distribute this. I don't know whether other people were doing it illegally, but there was only one place that you could legally buy this product, and that was from Charles and Coulvard, who had the patent for it since 1998. And then the price, when I first started back in whenever it was, 21 years ago, it was around about £650 for a 1 carat equivalent moissanite. By that I mean a moissanite that is 6.5 millimeters wide in a round. So it cost you around about £650 at trade for one of these stones. So they were not cheap. You know, a 1 carat equivalent CZ is about 50p, depending on how many you buy. So considerably more expensive than other imitations or alternatives that were out there at the time. And in order to test it, at first we had the panic that traditional diamond testers, thermal testers, would pass the moissanite as a diamond, which it does. It has almost exactly the same thermal conductivity or thermal inertia as a diamond. But very quickly, we all found that actually moissanite conducted electricity, and that was a really quick, easy test. So we then had 2 separate testers or 1 dual multi-tester that would do those 2 tests. So it was relatively easy using a tester to spot a moissanite at that point. So that's what they used to look like. That's how they started. Then looking at what does synthetic moissanite look like now? Well, the answer to that question is, what do you want it to look like? It looks like everything. There are a huge range of cuts available, including old mine cuts, old European cuts, rose cuts, double rose cuts, all of the fancy shapes. It's available cut as any, essentially almost any shape that you want. And these are easily accessible. It's also cut as accent stones and melee stones. So for instance, Cooksons sell accent moissanite from synthetic moissanite. I won't say synthetic every time, it gets tedious. You know what I'm talking about. When I say moissanite, I mean synthetic gem moissanite. Cooksons sell melee round moissanite from about 1.3 millimeters. So they are readily available. I think they're around about £3 a stone. So really, really easy to get hold of. Although interestingly, that's more expensive than you would pay for some diamond melee at that size. Also, it's now available in a huge range of colors. First of all, if you see the image on the left, that is a white moissanite. They can now treat the moissanite to remove that yellow element, that greenish element, and you can now get moissanite in DEF colors. So you can now get colorless moissanite. So if you think it's always tinted and that's what you're looking out for, be careful, because it now does occur in up to D color. Also, with regards to clarity, they have refined the manufacturing process, and so it is incredibly rare to have inclusions in modern, well-made moissanites. It's usually loop clean or VVS equivalent if you're talking about diamond grades. And in terms of fancy colors, you can get a whole range of fancy colors now. So you can get yellows, you can get greens, you can get teals, blues, browns, pinks. So this fancy moissanite is also available in fancy cuts and fancy colors as well. But one of the main things that you need to consider is, with these advancements in processes, in treatments, particularly in the whitening treatment, it has affected how moissanite tests on standard diamond and moissanite testers. Now, if you use one of the multi-testers, a huge proportion of moissanites will test as diamonds. So you do need to be really careful of that. And we will talk about that a little bit more in the future. Also, we now have diamond coated moissanite. So not only are they more durable, but that diamond coating will also affect the testing process. I've tested a number of them, and regardless of what I do on standard diamond testers, they test as diamonds. So it's really important that you learn what they look like so that you can identify them. So if we look at it as a comparison to diamond, as a diamond alternative, how does it stack up? Well, one of the reasons why it is so effective and so popular is because actually it is a really effective diamond alternative. It's almost as hard as diamond at 9.25. You will notice some difference with that, but it stands the test of time. If any of you have seen CZs that have been in secondhand jewelry, they are absolutely battered, scratched to bits. You don't see the same thing in moissanite. Absolutely, it wears considerably quicker than diamond does, but it is absolutely suitable as an engagement ring stone. It will last the test of time. In terms of dispersion, this is one of the things that Charles and Coolvard originally used as the fact that it is superior to diamond. It has considerably higher fire than diamond, so those flashes of rainbow colour that you will see will be considerably stronger and more impressive in a moissanite than in a diamond. The luster is almost as strong as that of a diamond, and sometimes in some cases brighter, in fact, in tests, depending on how you've tested it. So it has that really glittery, bright, reflective surface. In terms of colour, as you've just seen, you can now get up to D colour in white colours and a whole range of fancy colours. So again, comparable to the choice that you might have in diamond. In terms of clarity, as I've just said, most of these stones now are beautiful clarity. They're nice, clean stones. refractive index is remarkably similar to diamond again. So you don't get, like you see in CZ, one of the tests that we might use is that read-through effect. Because CZ doesn't reflect the light the same way as diamond, it can often look a bit glassy, a bit see-through. You don't get that at all with moissanite because the refractive index of the material is very close to diamond. It looks remarkably like diamond. It behaves with light in a remarkably similar way to diamond. One of the main differences, the two main differences are the fact that the specific gravity of moissanite is lower. That means that it is not as dense as a diamond. So when you're talking about moissanite, people will often say a 1 carat equivalent. The reason for that is a 1 carat equivalent moissanite will be 6.5 millimeters in round, but it will only weigh around about 88 points because it isn't as dense as a diamond. So it won't weigh 1 carat. So it's an identification feature, but also for sake of correctness, if you have a 1 carat equivalent moissanite, you cannot call it a 1 carat moissanite. A carat is a unit of weight. But the main and most useful feature for gemologists or for jewelers is the fact that actually moissanite is doubly refractive. What that means is when light enters a transparent substance, it slows down if it is more dense than the air. So for instance, water, gemstones, glass, that sort of thing. If it goes into a vacuum, it will speed up. But when light enters a gem material, it slows down. In some materials, it remains as 1 ray of light, comes out the other side. In most gem materials, what happens is the light gets split into 2 rays and comes out. In diamonds, it's singly refractive, so it remains as 1 ray. But in moissanite, it is doubly refractive. It does get split into 2 rays, and that is really, really key for identification. In fact, it is the most important identification feature of moissanite, in my opinion. So when we look at that and moissanite comparing to a diamond, it stacks up really well. It is a very good alternative. It is a very good imitation. So then what you've got is you have a great opportunity with customers. It does have a very similar look to a diamond, but a considerably lower budget. Now we've got lots and lots of different people who produce moissanite now. The patent or patent, whichever way you want to say it, for Charles and Coulvard started running out in the US in 2015, and all of them have run out worldwide now by 2018. So what that means is there are lots of other companies producing moissanite. What that has happened is that the prices have dropped. Now you can buy a 1 carat equivalent moissanite from around £25 to £100. So if we look back to it, used to cost 650. Those prices have really dropped. Chances are those prices are going to drop again because more and more people are going to be producing them. There's going to be more of them on the market. So you can get this similar look to a diamond, but a considerably lower budget. And that's sometimes what people need. A lot of customers will also look at synthetic or man-made gemstones as more ethical than earth-mined gemstones. So I'm seeing an awful lot on trade forums that certain consumers are looking for more ethical choices, and certain consumers are seeing manufactured gemstones as being more ethical than mined gemstones. So for those consumers that are that way inclined, that are looking for those things, this might be an option for them that may tick their ethical boxes. There is a wide choice. Now that there's all of those shapes, cuts, sizes, they can create, particularly when we're looking at it as a diamond alternative for engagement or bridal jewelry, they've got that choice now. They can have whatever they want. It's a different choice. Not all consumers want a diamond. It's a modern choice. So you will have a huge range of consumers out there where this is their choice. This is what they want. We need to be careful as jewelers that we don't necessarily push our opinions onto our customers. Whether you do or don't like moissanite, you kind of need to consider, should you be giving this choice to your customer? I've used the word choice 3 times there, not because I have a lack of vocabulary, but because this is what it is. It is the customer's choice. And if we give them more choice, maybe we can have more customers. Absolutely, you need to decide whether this fits your demographic or not, but this could be an opportunity to give more choice to your customers. And then also it can be a jeweler's or certainly a pawnbroker's nightmare. I've got this particular stone on the screen. This is a stone that I own. This is a synthetic moissanite, but it is F color or F equivalent color if we're looking at diamond grades. It is a VS equivalent clarity. It has a laser inscribed girdle, which, as you can see on the screen, has what appears to be a report number and the letters DIA that reads dia. It also is diamond coated, and it tests as a diamond. This is one of the stones that I found. As I was saying, I work with recycled gemstones an awful lot. I frequently have bags and bags, kilos of colorless gemstones to go through, and I go through them because sometimes there's diamonds in there that someone has missed. I maybe buy these bags of stones at fellows auctions, for instance, or from different jewelers, etc., and they may have missed a diamond in there. I got very excited when I saw this because it's around about a 1 carat equivalent. Weighed it, it was actually less. That didn't ring a bell to me, but I looked at it and straight away I thought, oh wow, this is a lovely diamond. This is a nice white VS diamond. Saw the inscription on the gun. I was like, yes, brilliant, I found a diamond, there's some money here. But very, very quickly I noticed the rounded facet edges, the high dispersion, and the fact that it was doubly refracted, so saw that it wasn't a moissanite. However, I have tested it with a standard diamond tester. It is one of the diamond coated ones, and it does test as a diamond. So this would be really easy for someone to spot. If you were in dialogue with a client, for instance, and you weren't putting full attention onto the stone in front of you. In fact, I heard a story from a very, very good valuer recently who did exactly that. They did notice, but they said it would have been so easy for them to have not noticed. The client came in with this stone that they had paid diamond money for. It had a diamond report. It had this inscription, and they were looking at it, and as they were chatting away, they could have taken it in as a diamond, but as it was, they did do due diligence. They did look properly, but they said for the first 5 minutes of talking to the customer, they had also assumed that it was a diamond. So do beware that these things are out there, and please do not get caught. So how do you not get caught? You need to be able to identify synthetic moissanite, or at least recognize it and get somebody else to identify it for you. I'm a great believer in the fact that everybody doesn't need to be a gemologist. Everybody who works in the jewelry industry absolutely needs to have some gemstone education. They need to know what their limits are, and they need to know where to go to get some help. You don't all need to be gemologists, but you do need to be aware of what's out there and what to look for. So the most useful tool that you have to detect synthetic moissanite is your eyes and a loupe. What you are looking for is that double refraction, and it's not something that I can teach you here and now to see in this. I'm happy to talk to any of you afterwards or what have you if you want some hints and some tips on how to see that. But what you're looking for is that double refraction that you will not see in a diamond. The best thing that you can use for that is make sure that you're aware it's out there, make sure you look for it, use good lighting, a good loupe, and your eyes. So always rely on your eyes, your observations, and your experience. Don't rely on tools. So in which case you have to become familiar with it. You cannot recognize something that you haven't seen. What you need is to be able to compare and to contrast. You need to have known items to learn from. You need some known moissanite, some known CZ, some known diamonds. Have a look at those and get used to becoming familiar with their properties. What do they look like? How does the surface luster of a moissanite slightly differ to that of a diamond? How do the facet edges slightly differ? How does that double refraction present? What do you see? How do you see that dispersion, that liveliness in the moissanite over that slightly subdued dispersion in a diamond? Have a look at things when you know what they are, get familiar with them, so then when you meet an unknown one, you will recognize it. It's really useful to have in your stores control samples where you have a diamond, you have a moissanite, you have a CZ, and you can use those to compare and contrast. And then finally, in testing, the testers. Now, in my experience, there is one major thing that most people overlook with their diamond testers. What most people do is they throw the instructions in the bin, or they don't read the instructions, and that is the biggest mistake ever. If you throw your instructions in the bin, you may as well throw your diamond tester in the bin. You do need to read the instructions. They all work very, very differently. Years ago now, I did an article for GemA on the use of diamond testers and how they worked. And if you do not use them as per the instruction, they fail up to 66% of the time. If you use them as per the instructions, they are 99% accurate, or they were at the time. This was before we had the new moissanites that can pass these testers. So do make sure whatever tester you have, you read and follow the instructions. Remember, they are not magic. They are fallible, and they will not identify these modern moissanites that have been treated to make them whiter or these ones that have diamond coatings. So I'm going to reiterate to you that the most important tool that you need to use when trying to check for moissanite are your eyes. So in summary, what are your takeaways from this? Firstly, know what's out there, know what moissanite looks like, and know what the opportunities are. Decide whether there are opportunities for this in your business. Is this something that you want to slot in? Are your customers the right demographic for this product? And grab the opportunities. Also, make sure that you know what the pitfalls are. Make sure that you train your staff. You put processes in place, things like take-in procedures, that if people aren't able to identify a diamond, that they call it a colorless gemstone. Make sure you're protecting yourself right from the front end. Whenever I've worked with people on consultancy, say, oh, we've got issues with repairs, almost always it's not resolved with training people how the workshop works or anything like that. It's actually changing their take-in procedures. So make sure that your staff are aware of this, make sure that you have trained them, and make sure that you have procedures in place to deal with all of these things, whether it's the opportunity of moissanite or whether it is the threat of moissanite in your business. Invest in the right education and tools. Make sure you know what tools are right for your business. Make sure you know where you can get that education. And obviously read the instructions if you buy the tools. So places that you can get help and support, you can go to GEM-A. They have a shop there. Sam, the instruments manager, will be more than happy to talk you through the instruments that they've got, what might be right for your business. They also have fantastic education. They have one-day courses right the way up to full diploma courses. So you can access education from GEM-A and also other similar companies. So GIA, if that's the way that you want to go, they also have very, very similar tools, very similar education. HS Walsh is somebody that I use an awful lot. Again, the staff there are more than happy to talk you through the tools, the options that they can help, and they have a wide range of things that you can use to help you test and sell even all of these things, as well as I would also mention Quick Test. So depending on what else you need to buy at the time, one of those three people should be able to help you with that. I can help you. We offer training and education, we offer advice. So even if you just want a quick 30-minute chat, you can be in your pajamas with awful hair like Helen and I, if that's what you want, to just go, oh God, you know, can you just give us a bit of advice? What should we do? And a lot of the time my advice is not work with me. A lot of the time it might be sending you elsewhere. If what we can offer is not right for you, then I would certainly not say that. I'm more than happy to offer people advice on where they can access resources, whether that's free or paid resources, whether that's with me or whether that's with somebody else. And also finally, and last but not least, the NAJ. Loads of fantastic courses, loads of fantastic resources. Have a speak to Gary. Ask him about member benefits. Ask him what they can do for you. There is so much that they can do for you. It's on your doorstep. If you're here, you're probably already an NAJ member. So there's a lot of this stuff that is out there for you. Read the Jeweler magazine. There's stuff in there all of the time. So there's loads and loads of places where you can go to get support. So that is it from me. Thank you very much for listening to me waffling on. I think we've got time for questions if there are. So I am going to stop sharing and hopefully Ben and or Helen will come back and lead the way. Either that or I'm just talking away to myself. No, you're on mute, Helen. Well, while Helen is dealing with that, I'm just going to quickly whiz through the chat and see if there are any questions that have come up in there that I can answer for everybody. Hold on. Hi, Harriet. Awful hair and no makeup. Stuart Paul's everyday state. Stuart, you need to work on that, mate. Sorry, you just enjoy the size of my face while I read through the questions. Harriet says she remembers buying one for a customer for a cost price of around about £1,300 and it was just under 2 carats. Bonkers prices back then, but that's what she wanted about 20 years ago. Absolutely, we were paying those sorts of prices at that time. If anybody has got a question, pop it in the chat. I'm scrolling down, see if we can get there. Yes, Harriet also says, Kerry, very interesting. Some people are seeing this as ethical. It can definitely be argued about otherwise. Might be worth talking about that a bit. Absolutely. Anything somebody says is ethical can be argued otherwise. It is absolutely not my place to do that. I don't have time to dip my toe in that water. What I would say is, one of the things that actually Stuart Paul said to me that really helped me is, you can't be perfect, but you shouldn't stop trying to get better because you're not perfect. It's one step at a time, one step forward, and certainly that's what I try and do in my business. Totally. I mean, some people could say, oh well, it's not ethical because it's produced in factories, it takes a huge amount of energy. Absolutely, you can argue either way. I think for you personally, the first thing you need to do is decide what is ethical to you. What do you believe in? What are your values? Where do you want to pitch? What's ethical to you? Where do you want to be? And where do your customers want to be? And then how do you supply that to them? And more importantly than that, how do you prove that to them? If someone scrutinizes what you're saying is ethical, how can you prove that it is? What audit trails do you have? Or how can you justify to a customer or put the customer's mind at rest that you have done everything possible to ensure that that does conform to those ethics that you've said that it does?
Kerry, I hope you can hear me now. Sorry, I had to log out. Technically, the microphone function completely died on me. Apologies.
No,
Kerry, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And you can see from the chat the appreciation of its content, and also how it was presented. There's a couple of more questions coming up about where you can actually buy. Is there a recommended supplier at all?
I don't have a recommended supplier. I know for a fact that Cookson sell moissanite, Wards sell moissanite. The UK agent used to be a company called Hasabani UK in the Jewellery Quarter, whose Makers Mark is HAZ. Mark Milton used to sell moissanite. There's a lot of different places that you can buy it now. You can buy it on eBay, you can buy it on Alibaba, you can buy it on Etsy. You know, it's some of it will come down to, you know, what sort of moissanite do you want, what sort of prices do you want to pay, what sort of bulk are you buying in. You know, if you want to buy $5,000 worth of it, you can import it direct from India or China. So it really depends on what you want, what your client wants, what sort of price, what sort of buying power you've got. But you will find that there are probably many people who you already do business with who can help you with that.
I was especially taken with the coloured moissanites to think that they appeared in fancy colours, and some of those tones were very striking. You know, you can imagine making beautiful pieces of jewellery from that.
Yeah, absolutely. There was somebody who inquired on one of the trade forums that I'm a part of yesterday, saying that their customer wants a synthetic teal sapphire. And that might be quite difficult to get hold of, because generally synthetic coloured gemstones are made in what are perceived to be the highest qualities. Traditionally, any sapphire that has a green element to it would be seen as a lower quality. So synthetic manufacturers aren't necessarily making teal sapphires. They might be now because there is a strong demand for them in the market, but it would certainly be considerably more difficult to find one of those. And so I suggested to the person that they might consider teal moissanite. It is a synthetic gemstone. It is absolutely right for their engagement ring that they're looking for, because it is as hard wearing or thereabouts as the sapphire would have been. And so it's about choice. It's about knowing what's out there, knowing what, as you said, listening to your customer, having a conversation with them about what they want, why they're buying it, what it means to them. Because sometimes they'll say, I want a synthetic teal sapphire, and what they mean is, I want a beautiful teal coloured gemstone for my engagement ring that I feel has done no harm. And when you take it that way, then you know what options there are out there to supply a gemstone that fits that bill, you're able to delight your customers and give them all of those choices.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page, aren't we? That we both love to look at gemstones with our eyes and our hearts, and not what we've been told previously. Yeah, so we look for the beauty that they contain, whatever they are, as long as, like you've said, it's with transparency and trust and traceability at all times. But like you, I don't want to dismiss a treated stone or a synthetic stone, especially if it fulfills the brief and it makes it price accessible. And therefore we can put people and jewellery together, which is, I think, what we're all passionate about. Absolutely. But you spoke about that, which is very important.
Yeah. There is another question there. What's the best way to rent a set of stones to train the staff? We have some diamonds but not moissanite. I wouldn't rent them. You can buy moissanite from 25 quid, just buy one. I can help you with that, or you can buy one from anywhere else. I don't know of anybody who rents them. I will be a bit of a shameless plug. I am releasing in October an online course, but it's an online blended course which teaches how to identify moissanite from simulants, and you get a set of stones as part of that course that is part of the course price that you get to keep. But you can kind of put together your own comparison sets by going, I'll buy in a CZ, I'll buy in a moissanite. You can easily, I mean, most people have got diamonds in their store already, most people have got CZs in their store. If you don't have a moissanite, buy one for 25 quid. That's the best way. I mean, I don't suppose you'd get a rental option for less than that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was a fantastic message about reading the instructions.
Oh God.
With them.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I mean, I think it's a nice lead because we are, certainly from my point of view, we are still seeing more and more interest in laboratory grown, certainly laboratory grown diamonds. And I think I've spoke previously about making sure that we deliver this message with transparency, but with credibility and traceability. I think there's place for all of these stones in the market, and you've opened our eyes up to another opportunity, which is fantastic.
I hope so. I hope that I'm about opportunities rather than negative things. So it might be an opportunity to learn. It might be an opportunity to add something else to your inventory, you know, whatever. But there should be an opportunity somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think on that note, so Mako, could we introduce you? Would you like to come on board and say hello to everybody? So Mako is joining us today from Green Rocks, and to be honest, this is a new company that I hadn't heard of. So welcome, Mako. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
Hi, Helen. And as I say, I wish we could meet in person rather than this, but
I know that the new reality, isn't it? Right, we said it's the new way of meeting. So,
yeah.
Would you just give us all a very brief introduction into yourself?
Yes, of course. So I'm Mako Eaton, and I work for a leading grower of lab-grown diamonds, but we're also a manufacturer and a supplier of naturals. So we're coming at this from a very unique perspective and a very unbiased perspective, and this will be kind of the main focus of my talk today. Kerry, I just want to say, I hope you can hear me, that I took so many notes during your talk, and I feel like we almost were like psychically linked when we were writing our talks, because we're going to talk about really similar things about how a lab grown offers a choice.
Yes.
And that it is so important for everyone in the jewelry industry I think you said, not to put their opinions onto these things, but to guide the customer to the right choice. And that's very much something we're seeing with the lab grown. That's very much something we're seeing with people who are being very successful with the lab grown. So I loved that, Kerry. I feel like we could have written this talk together.
Yeah, I think everyone's on the same page.
To connecting with you in the future and seeing how we can help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely.
The wonderful joy of the collaboration that these environments bring. I think it's so timely. I mean, as you know, I work with a retail business. The business is 150 years old, and yet we are offering laboratory grown diamonds. Now is the right time. So I think this is again yet another wonderful opportunity, which if we keep our minds open, and as you know, as Alan Hodgson says, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes, your mind, your ears and your heart open, and we'll go a long way. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you and look forward to hearing your presentation.
Lovely, thank you, Helen. And hello, and thank you to all the jewelers who have signed on today. Again, I wish I could be doing this in person. This is much more how we like to do things in person, but this is the new way, as I said. So I'm going to be talking to you today about what a lab-grown diamond is and how we've seen the demand grow within the UK for this product. But most importantly, how as jewelers, this understanding this product is beneficial for the stores and beneficial for your clients. One big take-home message I want to say, and this is very much how we feel about this product, is that anything that creates interest in diamonds, whether that be lab created, whether that be mined, and at the moment there is so much interest in lab grown, is a really good thing for the jewelry industry. If it gets a client into your store and engaged, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and something we should absolutely be capitalizing on. So with that in mind, I said it earlier, but I want to say again, I'm going to be coming from this talk and going into this talk very much with the perspective of someone who sells both lab grown, as I say, we're a leading grower in lab grown, but also is a supplier and a manufacturer of natural diamonds. So we're coming at it from an unbiased point of view, and my interest and my passion and my work is very much in both fields of the market. I truly believe that perspective has changed on this, and there is a place for both products to sit very equally alongside each other. Oh, apologies, I'm just going to mute my. So I suppose safety is a great thing, but we had our fire alarm test, so at least the building is still being safe. So apologies for that. So yes, as I say, you're probably not used to a lab-grown supplier saying that to you. You're probably not used to a lab-grown supplier saying to you that they're very interested in the mined cells versus the lab-grown cells and making sure that both are being sold equally alongside each other. And I think that's where we can give jewelers an education and a perspective that they haven't really been able to have necessarily before, because the one common thing that links all of the jewelers that we work with, and all of the jewelers have been really successful with lab growns and very successful still with their mined cells where it isn't impacting their mined cells at all, is that they do understand this notion. They understand this notion that a lab grown diamond sits equally alongside a mined diamond, and it creates a choice for the clients. And I think Kerry said it herself earlier, more choice is a good thing. More choice often means more clients, and more clients coming into the store. So it's very important, and it's, as I say, something that the jewelers who've been really successful selling both, they understand it very well. So as I said before, we don't see mined and lab-grown diamonds as something that need to compete or be in war with each other. And I strongly encourage you to take that message home from today and to be sort of feeling that message with your clients. If I do my job correctly today, that's very much the message that you're going to be taking home with you. What's kind of fascinating to see is kind of how the perception has changed within the market, really. So Green Rocks has been operating in Florida since 2016, but we've been in the UK now for about 2 years, and the perception has changed hugely. It's something I'm going to talk a little bit later about, what people thought of lab growns when they came into the market here a couple of years ago and kind of where sort of people are now. I think the main thing that's been really interesting, and the main change that's been really interesting, is the language has changed around it massively. Kerry said something earlier as well, which I think is very true, but a couple of years ago, there was a lot more skepticism towards his products. A couple of years ago, the language was very different. And I think as jewelers and in the industry, we were very much being sold a story that lab-grown diamonds were going to be disruptive to the industry. They were going to be disruptive for jewelers. They were potentially something that jewelers needed to be skeptical and a bit cautious of because it could hurt their mined cells. And on the other end of the spectrum, you would have lab-grown suppliers coming in and saying very much the opposite, saying that this is the way forward, this is the future, this is the newest product. And I think us Brits naturally are a little bit skeptical anyway and prone to ask questions. And so when those sort of two kind of warring thoughts were in play, I think it did create that skepticism and that perhaps defense in the industry. And as I say, the caution people had a few years ago around lab created diamonds. I think the perception, as I say, has very much changed, but I'm here to tell you kind of like a very different side of the story. I'm here to tell you kind of the experience we see here in the UK office and what we see in the US market as well. So we have a US office, and the lab-grown market is more established there. It's been trading for a little bit longer. And what we're seeing over there is now what is starting to happen in the UK. What we're seeing is that our lab-grown arm of the business, which is Green Rocks, has not affected our natural arm of the business, which is OMD, at all. In fact, both Green Rocks and OMD Diamonds, they're continuing to have really, really successful seasons. The introduction of the lab-grown to our client base there has not affected anything at all. And it's been very much the same story in the UK. The early adopters of the lab-grown, so the jewelers who got on board with this a couple of years ago, are really very much seeing the same thing happen now. Offering a lab-grown stone does not and will not jeopardize your mined cells. And I think that's probably the last question that a lot of jewelers are going to have for me and have for us. I am going to talk a little bit later about, again, as I say, how things have changed a little bit, but that seems to be very much the last question that jewelers have. There's this sort of nervousness around how it's going to affect the mined cells. But as I say, I'm going to be sharing success stories of jewelers who have done really well with both products. And if you understand the product and you educate yourself on it, it's really not something you need to worry about at all. As I keep saying, and to use Kerry's word of choice, lab-grown offers another choice. It offers a value proposition that is fantastic. I give you a quick example of a jeweler I was speaking to last week, where they have bought a 2-carat lab-grown emerald, and the client had in their mind so much that they wanted to go for the mined version of the stone. But for most people, for me at least, I wish it was a different story. A 2-carat mined emerald is just not a reality. It's not in most people's budgets. And so having the lab-grown option, it was a really beautiful 2-carat GVS2 emerald that they went for, gave the client a way to have everything they wanted, still got the sale for the jeweler, and actually they spent about the same money that they'd always planned to spend on the ring, but they got what they wanted without necessarily having to massively downgrade on size, color, and clarity, which is what they would have had to have done initially. So choice is really, really important. And it's, as I say, what jewelers who have been really successful understand, that they should be alongside each other. They should be seen as equals. And that's the big change we've seen, that the language has changed, as I say. Initially, I think the two industries, I think everyone will agree that they were very much sort of warring with each other. But as I say, that's where we come in with right in the middle and just say it doesn't need to be that way at all. And actually, the way to be successful doing this is to sell it alongside each other as equal options. That is really the way forward with these, that you will present a lab-grown diamond alongside a natural diamond. You need to be able to present all of the facts to people and let the customer choose. There will be some customers where their values and what they want and what they're after will always align with a natural diamond. And you know, I worked in retail for a very long time prior to being on the wholesale side. For those clients who perhaps don't even mention the lab-grown diamond, it's not even necessarily relevant to them. But there are some clients as well who are immediately engaged with the lab-grown. And that's the other thing that's so interesting. What we're seeing in the UK at the moment is, when we started a couple of years ago here, that wasn't so much the case. We'd have to educate clients on it. But now end clients are coming to jewelers saying, okay, I know what a lab-grown is. I know what it offers. This is what I want. And again, there are clients who will come in who will be very much in the middle, where they may come in with a budget hoping for a natural where it just doesn't necessarily get them there. And if you have that lab-grown option to show them, immediately you'll have engagement. And it's something I love hearing from my clients, that having that lab-grown option closed the sale for them there and then in the spot. And without it, they just wouldn't have had the sale, because we all know what it's like. We all know clients come in with perhaps sometimes slightly unrealistic expectations of what their budget can get them. And that's where a lab-grown diamond just offers something so fantastic. And on the flip side of things as well, and again, I love hearing these stories from jewelers. Sometimes actually having the lab-grown diamond pushes someone back over to the mine side. I had a jeweler last week tell me exactly that. We were talking to him about, I believe, princess cuts. We were quoting him on natural and lab. He actually thought the client was going to go towards the lab-grown because he was able to get a bigger size, a better color, a better clarity for the same money. But actually, in the end, the client decided, you know what, I'm going to go smaller. A natural is what I want. I think it's what my fiance will want. And the jeweler still got the sale. And he said it himself, and I think it's very true, that had he not had the lab-grown option to show, he may not have got that sale. So for us, and as I said earlier, whatever engages an end client in jewelry and diamonds is such a wonderful and powerful thing. And we should be celebrating anything and educating, engaging in anything that does that for the industry. And at the moment, that's very, very much what lab-grown is doing. Everyone is asking questions, everyone's interested. There's so much press about it at the moment. So in times that can be more challenging, and it was actually really lovely to hear Helen say that year on year things are picking up and looking more stable. It's encouraging to hear, and it's what we're hearing with jewelers too. But in these times, it's just so important that you have all spectrums in value to offer, and you have everything to offer to a client. That warring language, as I keep saying, is something we need to stop straight away. It doesn't help. And actually, funnily enough, Kerry and I had been speaking a little bit before this talk, and we were chatting sort of back and forth about this. And I am going to borrow something that she said that I think is so perfect, and it's so true. Discord does not sell diamonds. And that is such a powerful message. That is something so powerful we need to take away with us today. Creating a discord, creating a war between mined and laboratory-grown diamonds to your clients or within yourselves is just going to create disillusionment within the client. What you'll often see will happen is that you'll create a scenario where a client was perhaps interested, they weren't too sure which way they were going to go. And we all have our personal opinions, I guess, on what we think about lab growns versus mined. Karen was obviously talking about moistenites and synthetics too. And it's so important we don't push those opinions onto clients. We give them the choice of all of the options. Because if you don't, and if you engage in that discord that the industry was sort of feeling a couple of years ago when they first came into the market, and as I say, we were told we were going to be the disruptors of the industry, and we were going to be bad for jewelers. If you engage in that, you just lose a client. You lose a client who then goes online, they start researching, they look it up themselves, and they're no longer coming to you. I guess I'll add almost something onto that. The discord does not sell diamonds, but I guess I would add on that education and expertise does. The service that jewelers offer to their end clients is so important. And so now more than ever, it is so important that jewelers fully understand what a lab-grown diamond is, the price point, or the questions that your clients might be asking you about it. Give them a totally informed choice and let them choose. And as I said earlier, some clients will just come in immediately wanting a mined diamond. There won't be much point in showing them a lab grown. Some will come in knowing already, having done all the research. You know, we all love Google these days. We all love to go on and you know, clients come into your stores thinking they're experts already, right? They've looked up so much already. So having that and understanding that will always help you close the sale for sure. So I'm going to go back to basics a little bit because I can see lots of people in the chat, and I'm not sure where everyone's sort of knowledge and expertise base is on lab-grown diamonds, kind of what you want to know about it. So I thought I'd start with very, very basics about what is a lab-grown diamond and what is it against a mined diamond. And I'm really pleased to say, I hope everyone got the announcement that we have someone called Adam Hoffman joining us in my bubble just after 12 lunchtime. And Adam is the CTO and the CEO of ISRAF. So ISRAF for Green Rocks is our research and development, and it's our production facility in Israel. It's where we're growing our diamonds. So this is going to be like a wonderful opportunity to talk to myself and Adam directly about how lab-grown diamonds are grown. I'm sure lots of people will have questions around the energy expenditure. It's a question I get asked when I'm talking to jewelers every day about the product. So Adam's wonderful. He's an expert in the field, and very much Green Rocks will accredit him for the reason that we're able to grow such beautiful quality. We're able to grow at the sizes and in fancy shapes that a lot of the industry can't grow in at the moment. So he's joining us a little bit later for that, which will be fantastic. But let's start with what is it and how is it different to a mined diamond? Is it different to a mined diamond? And this is as well something which has been encouraging to see that has also changed in the last 2 years. I think, again, when we started, that was a question we were asked all of the time. Is it different? It must be different. The price point is so different. What is it? And it's not. A lab grown is chemically, structurally, it's optically exactly the same as its mined counterpart. To the eye and even through a loop, you cannot tell the difference. And believe me, a lot of jewelers have tried to test me on this when I've gone out to visit jewelers, when we've looked at lab growns against mined. It's something that jewelers love to do with me to see if they can spot the lab grown, and very often they can't. And I think the jewelers who have will admit, if they were here, that it was sheer luck that they managed to guess it. If they did manage to guess it, you can't tell the difference. It is a diamond. And again, that's where the language has changed a little bit recently. You've probably noticed that people now talk about a mined diamond versus a lab grown, whereas before it was often being talked about as a natural versus a lab grown. So the language is changing a little bit around it. Consumers certainly understand that it's a diamond. In every aspect, it's exactly the same as its mined counterpart, and that it offers a price point difference, which I'm going to talk a little bit later about the value proposition that a lab-grown diamond can offer. So there are 2 ways in which a lab-grown diamond can be created or grown, and as I say, we're going to talk about this more in the bubble. But you have HPHT, that's high pressure, high temperature, and you have CVD, and that's chemical vapor deposition. Both have merits for growth. They're used for different things. But HPHT, or the high pressure, high temperature, as I said, is when a small diamond seed is placed on a growth cell within a cubic press and is exposed to these very, very high pressures and high temperatures. The graphite in that growth cell is then melted into a liquid, and then it's kind of carefully cooled and formed into a diamond crystal. So CVD is quite different. It's quite different for two reasons. Firstly, CVD is what is growing type 2A diamonds. You'll notice a lot on certificates for lab grown that you'll see they'll say CVD or they'll say HPHT and they'll say CVD type 2A diamonds. But CVD diamonds are grown in a vacuum instead of under high pressure. And rather than a small seed, they require a large flat plate of a diamond instead. So these plates are then put into this vacuum and they're carefully injected with gases generally such as methane. Then the high power microwave energy, it will break down the atomic bonds between that gas and it separates the carbon atoms from the hydrogen atoms. It's really cool, like if you see it happening, but essentially results in like a carbon raining down onto the plate. And so you can see this under a 60 loop, and it's the only way you'll ever really be able to see, but it creates this vertical growth up of the diamond atom by atom, which is kind of fascinating. So they're kind of your two different ways that you can grow diamonds. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about kind of, I guess, the main questions that jewelers will ask me or ask us about lab growns, and probably the main questions, I guess, that are coming from end consumers. And this is a really big one, and it's what is the price difference between a lab grown and a mined diamond? And in general, you can expect that a lab-grown diamond is going to be around about 50 to 60% cheaper than its mined counterpart. So I've given an example in the slide here that if a client was coming in looking for like a 1 carat FVS2 and a mined diamond, you'll generally be looking at around about a 150 in a lab-grown, and it will be towards like a DE, it will be VVS1, probably VVS1, VVS2. So it gives you an idea of kind of the price point that you're looking at there. The really important take home for this, and again, I think this is something that jewelers who are not yet selling lab growns are sometimes cautious about, is my personal experience and our experience selling both shows that it doesn't mean that your client will spend less money. And I think that's often the worry, is that if they come in with a budget for a natural and they go towards a lab, they'll get the exact same thing and they'll sort of be like a smaller transaction value, I suppose. That's really not what we're seeing happening at all. What we're seeing happening is that, as I say, people will instead upgrade the size, the color and the clarity of the stone that they're after. And this is, very much generally, I think these days, what people see in a lab grown stone. So I think when people come into stores with budgets or with an idea in mind of what they want to spend, they very rarely downgrade from that. To give you a little bit of background about me, prior to the diamond business, I worked in the bridal business. I had shops in the bridal business. So I used to work with engagements in a very, very different aspect. I was with brides, basically finding gowns. And we used to find exactly the same thing, that when clients came in with a budget, they never downgraded from the budget. Even if they went for a non-designer gown, they would still end up spending the same amount of money because they would add things to the non-designer gown they'd gone for. And it's still very much the same with a lab-grown diamond. You don't see a smaller transaction. You just see that the client wants bigger and a better color and clarity instead. And again, it goes back to that idea of choice, that really the way I talk to jewelers about selling lab growns alongside mined diamonds, and the feedback I get from jewelers who are doing really well with both of these products and again not impacting their mined sales, is that they're introduced as an option. Lab grown is an equal option against a mined diamond. You might have someone come in with a budget, and what that budget will get them is perhaps like a 1 carat FSI2 for that budget. And a lab grown now lets them have, as I say, like a 150, but with a higher color and clarity. And the other bit of feedback that I get from jewelers all of the time is that by having that option, the sale almost becomes quicker as well. For the people who are engaged by that and see, oh, actually, that's an amazing thing that I can have that instead, rather than coming back necessarily for a second appointment and a third appointment to keep viewing diamonds, we actually find our turnaround time on lab grown like very, very high and very, very quick. When people see the option and the choice that they're able to get, then they really do go for it immediately. We have a very quick turnaround on that side of the business. So it's, as I say, the question I think people are still a little bit nervous about, but it's not something we experience. We work with a lot of jewelers in the UK. It's certainly not something that jewelers ever tell us that it impacts their mind or that it becomes a smaller sale. As I keep saying, for the jewelers who are doing really well with it, they've understood where lab grown sits in the market. They've stopped hearing that background noise we were getting a few years ago of disruption and you need to be cautious, and they've totally embraced what a lab grown diamond is, what it does for their business, what it does for their store. And also the other thing I would say as well is that this change in perception and this change in pace that we've seen in the market, though it's also definitely been driven by the fact that, you know, IGI has always been offering lab grown certs, and that certs actually are fantastic on lab grown. We obviously recently had the announcement that GIA is going to go into full lab grown certs, and that's only a good thing for the industry as well, and for consumer and jeweler sort of credibility on the lab growns. Before, they were offering kind of like a half cert. I'm not sure if anyone has seen them before, but they would say sort of no color grades. Basically, they would tell you they were near colorless, etc. But they announced that they are going to fully grade lab grown diamonds exactly the same as they grade their mined diamonds, under exactly the same protocols that they use for their mined diamonds. And that's a great thing. It really is. It shows very clearly that the industry and the market has moved, that we accept this product, and that it's seen as something exactly the same as a mined diamond. But really, truly, I think the change in this and the change in the pace and the perception has actually been very consumer-led. I've had calls with jewelers a lot where the customer is now the one coming in asking for a lab grown diamond. As I said earlier, we all love Google, right? We all love to research before we go to a jeweler or wherever we're going to go. And more jewelers are telling us that clients are coming in asking for lab grown diamonds, or at least asking lots of questions about it. And that's why it's just so important that you know what it is, and you offer the choice for the customer. So that's again been very interesting, because 2 years ago that wasn't necessarily the case. So things have changed very quickly. And yes, the change in pace I think has been very consumer led. The other question we get asked quite a lot is about the green credentials of lab grown. And this is something that, my personal opinion, and I think Kerry sort of said this as well, is I wouldn't necessarily push the green credentials of lab grown against mined diamonds. I think, again, as we talk about changing perceptions in this industry, 2 years ago, that was very much where it was going. It was being pushed as a more ethical option. And I think this is what caused a little bit of war between the natural and the lab grown industries at first, sort of arguing about who was greener and who was better. And as I keep saying, Discord doesn't sell diamonds. It's certainly not the way to sell it to your clients. Again, you'll have clients who will come in and they've just decided that lab grown ticks all the boxes for them. They've decided that it is the more ethical choice and that they prefer it, that they think the energy expenditure is better than the land displacement. I wouldn't personally get too involved in that topic. I would, again, present all the choices that this is what a lab grown diamond does in terms of energy expenditure, and this is what a mined diamond does in terms of land displacement. But it's not necessarily something I would get too involved in, really. Clients will make their own choices on that. As I say, for some clients, it's really important to them that they think that the lab grown is like an ethical, more green version, but for others, again, it really isn't. Really, I think now what we see 2 years on is that what the lab grown provides for people is that value proposition. That's the real thing that sells the lab growns against the mined stones. So less and less we get asked these questions about sort of green credentials, and more it is about how a lab grown diamond makes, to be honest with you, it makes diamonds more accessible to people. It really does. As I told you the story earlier of the jeweler who sold the 2-carat emerald. For most people, that is not reality to be able to get a stone of that size and a mined diamond. And so it offered the jeweler and the end client a way to have that size in a real diamond. And they were thrilled. They were really, really happy. So I think generally what you'll find, if the jewelers who are in the chat are already selling lab grown, or if they are getting questions about it, I think that's generally what you're going to find will be the reason that people are steered towards lab grown. That is probably all for me for now. I think I've got a few minutes left, so if there are questions, then let me know. But otherwise, we're going to be in the bubble later with Adam, as I said, and that's going to be like a really wonderful opportunity to talk to Adam about the growth process as well. Hi, Helen.
Hi there, mate. Thank you, Mecca. That was fantastic. And personally, I love to hear such a balanced view. And like you say, that both of them can live together. They can both support each other. And I love the quote about discords do not sell diamonds. And, I passionately believe we're in an industry of love and, positivity, and making sure that we are transparent and credible in what we say is so important. So thank you so much for that. We'll see if there's any more questions coming in. I think for me, I did just want to pick up on the, if you like, the carbon footprint, and it is something that we do get asked. And I think you're right to suggest that we steer away from things that we don't know about, but it's hard. There's not a lot of information out there, so it's great that we've got a researcher with us to ask some further questions. But I think for me, I've always been very transparent and said to my clients that there is an energy expenditure with laboratory grown diamonds. There is a carbon footprint, but trying to be very balanced and, like you say, steer away from imposing our judgments and rules on it, listening to the clients, as Kerry and I talked about earlier on, and being very sort of transparent in it. So thank you so much for that.
No problem at all.
We're getting a lot of a real appreciation for the talks today. Stuart, excellent presentations today. Thank you both. Very informative and very balanced. And I think it's fascinating the fact we've had a morning talking about synthetic moissanite and laboratory grown diamonds. It's interesting to see that there's almost a new dawn, or there's an acceptance about where we're going and what's happening as well. So I'm going to ask that Ben joins us as well. We're going to be, I think, getting some excellent insight in marketing. Personally, as jewelers, I do find it very difficult that we're not marketing experts, and yet we do have a fantastic expert with us. We have Ben. So we're going to be tapping into his resources and his expertise. He's technically brilliant as well, and helps me out through all those other challenges. So he's a wonderful man to have with us. So
good morning,
Ben, welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
So without further ado, I'll hand you over. The power of imagery in marketing. I mean, I think how important, for the fact we're in an industry of aesthetics, that we haven't necessarily got the hands-on experience. We have to think digitally how we're going to connect with our clients. So this should be a fantastic talk.
Way to talk it up, Helen. There's a couple of updates before I start. For people carrying on into the bubbles afterwards, and they are very much worthwhile, because it's a chance to sort of, the meet and greet side of things as best you can do digitally. We're going to run with a single bubble today, so that's going to be bubble one. So you can then, so Kerry and Mako, and also Mako's colleague, who she just referred to there, if it does get a little bit busy, and it probably will, then we'll be able to extend a bubble too. But the link that you're going to need is just going to go in the chat now. And so no need to act on that one yet, but when you midday, once we've announced the winner of the bottle of champagne, let's not forget that, then from midday it's a case of jumping in there and open up that link in your browser is the best way of doing that. But I'll touch on that afterwards. We normally have a poll as well, and for the guys that come to the NAJ lives once a month, they are on the last Thursday of every month. We've actually changed it, and I'm going to touch on our poll that we've run for the Christmas campaign, just to give you a bit of insight on who the association is going to be targeting their PR campaign towards this year. The members have spoken, so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about that before we get into the imagery. So let's jump in here. So we at the association published some news about that we were going to put a 5-figure campaign together, but before we acted, we wanted to find out from the membership, what type of customer is it that you wanted to attract this year. It's a very different year, we know that, and there's announcements that I'll make at the end of this presentation on how the association can support 16 businesses with a new program. But the results were from the poll, and we had 42 responses, which generally speaking was from single independent jewellery retailers and designers. who felt that who were based, generally speaking, on the high streets. Southeast Greater London was the main responses, and the questions were about what do you do with your website, and that was probably the only thing that was quite split. So you can see 55% of respondents were the website is our digital shopfront to force to inspire inquiries to come into store, with 45% that it is to sell online. You'll see a little link there, the naj.co.uk/live-o-meter. We have that live all of the time for those that sell direct to the public, just to respond about how trade's going. So yeah, once a month we do run a report off that, and we do generally report back into the NAJ Live. But this NAJ Live, we wanted to talk specifically about who we're targeting on the campaign. So what did they say? What did you say? Should I present? Generally speaking, age demographics, 45 to 54 years of age. This is a score out of 5, so that ranked really highly, as did sort of the age demographics either side of that. And clearly, it was for people buying for their significant other. Now that would either be, well, generally speaking, partner, but also children, any parents or any siblings. But interestingly, by far and away, the most popular buying sentiment, and I think if you've seen the work that we've done with the white paper earlier this year, personal meaning was what members wanted us to build this campaign around. And in due course, we'll be talking about what exactly it is this campaign will look like. But that's so some of the useful comments that were provided were to link to meaning and not necessarily gifting. That the campaign should incorporate a push on quality. It should remind people that obviously 2020 has been a difficult year. And why not propose this Christmas? There was also some inferred comments about how people traditionally buy red letter days, experiences, holidays for Christmas. So these people are now not, the public generally unlikely to buy these with COVID. But ultimately, why jewellery and why not red letter days? What is it about jewellery that is attractive? And again, members reported that it's creativity and design, it's the craftsmanship, and it's the link to special occasions. That's kind of like the USP, this unique within what might appear under a Christmas tree or on Christmas morning. But why buy from that particular member? Why did they feel they were able to stand out? What should we be presenting? And service was front and centre with that, closely followed by experience and knowledge and inspiration as well. A few comments here on recordings being sent out. Yes, you will get a recording submitted straight away. So that's who it is that we are targeting, and that's some of the messages that we'll be looking at incorporating into that campaign. Now, I'm going to talk about images and imagery and how you can apply that and how important it is. I'm not necessarily going to talk about product imagery, because that is a good product imagery, generally speaking, is a good product imagery. I'm going to be talking about how you get people and prospective customers to see that product imagery. How can you get the right person in the right frame of mind to arrive at that point of purchase with their expectations firmly set? So for the sort of the 3 need to knows here are: who is your customer? Do you have 2 types of particular popular customer? Do you have 3 types of customer? If you were able to develop them into what you call a persona, have they got a different, looking at the polls that we just did there, have they got a certain age demographic? have they got a reason why they buy? Have they got a reason why they buy from you? So being able to understand your customer and actually have a clear, well, this is my customer. They want to come into store, or they want to feel, and it's very much about the feeling. And I'll use that word quite regularly through this presentation, of a certain experience. I think that it's also important to look at, well, what do they do in their spare time? So you can actually, is it a case of watching Emmerdale? Is that what they do? Do they like to watch soaps? Do they like to play golf? How can you really develop that type of customer so you've got it firmly fixed in your mind? Because whatever you do within your marketing campaigns, it's important to have those customers, and then that allows you to be able to nuance different campaigns directed towards that particular customer. But starting from sort of square one, what we're going to look at in this presentation is developing a set of images which will really allow you to do sort of, I'm really keen on this, less things better, less is more. So being able to streamline, because ultimately it's if you've got five images, 4 are great and 1 isn't up to scratch, then it's the 5th image that isn't up to scratch that will sort of let the whole thing down. So it's consistency, which is the vital element. Know your channels. By channels, I mean social media, websites, in-store, even WhatsApp as well. You use a different image style, emojis, that kind of thing. So depending on the different channel, you can nuance, and being able to define how you approach each one of those channels is also important. And then also knowing your brand and your personality. So it's great to be fun. It's great to be quite personal, and that also makes you stand your different personality, especially with, I suppose, smaller businesses. You're able to stand out, especially people that work within a specialised subset, or whether you work in a certain quite defined geographic location. So really defining your brand and personality is critical as well. But again, it's consistency. Okay, I'm just going to bring up some notes here. Check on the different screen. You'll see me looking either side because I've got a screen set over here. The camera's on this monitor. In fact, let's see if we can switch that over, because then I'm talking to you rather than. There we go. Okay. So what do we know about images? Images are memorable. Some data from a website called HubSpot. Now, HubSpot's quite a useful reference when you talk about marketing. There's some really useful go-to guides there. They say that we recall 65% of what we see versus 10% of what we hear. Images also present faster communication. They say that it takes 100 milliseconds for a mental and emotional impact from an image. In a world where we scroll the height of Big Ben every day, then that faster communication is imperative. And in an engagement and sales perspective, 67% of consumers say the quality of, and this is particularly around product imagery, is more important than the product information, the product description, and any customer ratings or reviews. And I credit that to HubSpot. So if you're new or not heard of HubSpot, it's a very useful tool to be able to incorporate into your sort of how-to learning and development. I believe, it's certainly my approach on things here, that you've got 3 different types of imagery that you can apply. So group these into your stock or professional shots, your sort of branded imagery. So here you might have your company logo, you might have an infographic, you might have the NAJ member logo on there, and then you've got your user generated, which is, yes, your engagement couple proposing on the beach, or outside the Duomo in Florence, for example, or you've got maybe some sort of filters or things that you or your colleagues work through the platforms. All of these images are valuable to a business. They are all have their place. What's I think suppose businesses that are able to do well with their imagery are able to balance all of these different types of images, and they make that balance change depending on their channel or the communication tool that they're using. And I'll come on to different channels and how you'd arrange that balance later on. Stock professional photos. Stock sites are around. There are some brilliant stock sites that you can get at. If you get free ones, the likelihood is that other people are going to have those same images. So does that allow you to stand out from the crowd? Not so much. It is worth investing in some professional photos of about the business. So make a slide deck of 5 or 6, and I'll show an example why shortly. The logos and branded items that I point to, these generally are used as almost credentials that buyer is in a safe space, that they are attracted by the stock or professional photo, but are then inspired and raise their expectation of the business because they're associated. So you can be quite clever in how you associate one with the other. I'll touch on some examples of this. And then with user generated, it's all about mirroring your customer. So if you know your customers and the 2 or 3 or 4 different types of customers that you have, your user generated content is effectively mirroring your target audience. So as a member of the public, you're seeing people like yourself. So if you think about the 3, I'm inspired by the stock professional. Wow, look at that. Want. I am assured by the branded. I am also being able to put your logos next to the inspirational and the user generated. Also elevates your brand. Everyone's got a the value of the perception or the brand. But then you've also got the user generated, effectively say, well, I've inspired you, I've presented you, and the user generated is about that nudge to get people saying, well, you're in the right place. Okay, so here we've got some examples. Here's an example of maybe the about you. So if you imagine on your site, the about you page should talk about what makes you. I use this with the guys all the time at the NAJ. The analogy is, if you're moving house, you've got to be useful, beautiful, or interesting. So those are the 3 things that you're trying to present out. Generally, we look at, okay, I want to see the person, I want to see the figurehead of the business. People buy off people, right? So who is it that I'm going to associate my interest with this business? And so there is, in my opinion, nothing stronger than I am smiling back at you. This is me. This is my business. It kind of image, especially for smaller businesses, because that's who they're connecting with. For services, strong images are of you doing the job, task, or service that you love. If I say I was an estate agent, I would want to be having photos of me showing people around houses. It's what I'm doing. It's what people are paying me to do. So therefore, the slide deck should show the prospective customer me in action. So you're now bringing some theatre towards what you do. Obviously, if you, I think this is Simon's in Chiswick, that it's a stellar shot that will be used time and time again. So it's a sensible investment. You could walk past that and I've seen this imagery before, connect, but also you've on this deck you've also got that some just fantastic piece of jewellery. So some examples of the craftsmanship and the creativity that you've got there. Here's an example of how somebody, I say Lily, I've referred to Lily Arkwright in our jeweler magazine before, because they have the member logo, just so powerful. You've got your hero professional shot, so they quite clearly understand who their customer is. And they have really, really effectively framed this, what you call a hero image, with that customer, with their credentials at the bottom and also their branding at the top. So here as a snapshot, it is certainly, if you think about how many words are presented, the imagery is extremely strong in being able to capture that interest. And what is it that I want to do? I want to click on that box there. I'm driving my interest. So you are presenting, you think about delivering people to the product imagery shots, or pushing them into store, or pushing to the inquiry for something more bespoke. You are making them arrive in the right frame of mind, that they are in a safe place, that they are inspired, and the call to action is simple, it's clearly laid out. So that's a really nice example. Point of note, this is the member logo. So the sort of logo police, sometimes I know that the association has changed its logo relatively recently, but just as a word to note, this is the member logo that as a member you are free to use across your stationery, website, platforms, so on and so forth. I think it's sensible to mention that. So here's another example of user-generated content. So this is Peter in Liverpool, and these guys have got this widget. So they've dropped it into their home screen. And what a widget means is that it's sort of like a little tool that you incorporate that into the website. So whatever people are posting on Instagram, and they clearly have defined their audience and are mirroring the customer back to them. And don't forget this. So this is not just working on the website where you want to push people towards. It's also competing on the social media platforms. And if you think about what's it, or in emails, for example, you are competing against things like cat videos. You are competing against what Auntie May has seen on her autumn walk this morning. So being able to mirror and present people back to themselves, sort of demographic, then you're able to capture that interest, and that, I think, is where more and more businesses or jewelry businesses are looking at this sort of user-generated content. Again, less is more. So being able to post on social, but these images are good to use on email newsletters. They're good to use on websites, but perhaps not where you've got your sort of hero content at the very top. How can you deploy each type of image to connect with your audience in the right way? So I've tried to present this as user generated it can be presented as looks, but you almost want to have fewer stock and professional images. It's almost like a pyramid, that your connection. So you start at point one. You've got your 5 hero stock about you images. That's what really drives this word value perception. And value perception is people are prepared to pay more for you. That's what you're trying to do here. That when it arrives at the price, you are valued higher in their mind than what you would without the imagery. And that's why people are able to charge a different margin, because of the backstory, because of the about me, what makes me useful, interesting, beautiful, special. And it's all centered around this brand. So wherever you present your brand, it's sensible to lean on either your stock or your professional, your about yous, or your user generated. This user generated was brought to you by so-and-so jewelers, so-and-so designers. Personal opinion, that even though your looks slightly goes down with the finish, your connection is increased because of the mirror effect. Your stock in professional is perhaps arguably a bit more inspirational, a bit more sort of where you want to get to, maybe in life or lifestyle shots. But the user generated more and more. But how do you get people to check out? Because engagement is one thing, and we can spend a lot of time engaging people, but how do we get them to arrive and actually want to go through with a purchase? So these may be some different channels that you could deploy. So you've got your direct marketing, and by that it's I am sending a message to you. It could be an email, it could be a letter, it could be it could even be a phone call, it could be a WhatsApp or something like that. But ultimately, it's I'm taking branding for the lead. I'm just going to keep this onto the other screen. So, if you think in the traditional sense of sending a letter, you will have your letterhead at the top, lead with the branding. This is why this letter has certain authority. This is why this email has a certain authority. The very first thing then is look at this image. You've got those milliseconds, those 100 milliseconds for people to form an emotional attachment with whatever it is you're saying. And then it's at the bottom, the user generated. If the inspirational shot didn't work for you, the user generated mirror then kicks in. All of these activities, all of these channels are pushing that customer back to your website or your store, wherever it is the point of purchase you want them to go. If, like the Christmas poll that we set out, that 45% of people's website is e-commerce, then that's great. But if you want to then push people to store, you've then got to get people from your website to do another action to get them into store or to get that commission. Do not overlook, please do not overlook, you find a jeweler tool that you get with the NAJ. It is there. That is what all of our campaigns are delivered to get consumers to be looking at the Find a Jeweler pages. Again, if you're in the trade, you can search by trade, you can search by public. But these are really your sort of 5 areas that to define and how that different image is deployed. Let's go on with some examples. So on the news and blog that we've got on the website, Hatton & Spencer, nice, strong product image shot. The copy is doing a lot of work, not just in terms of providing information, but it's also working within the search Google as well. But ultimately, when people arrive on that page, a captivating image has got to be first and foremost. How would you differentiate between a product image and why not a people? Why wouldn't we present a people first image on here? Well, it's quite trade focused. Defining that if I would like to if I'm, let's say, take to the Lily Arkwright image before, I'm putting a people image at the very top because I want to attract. Not quite confident yet that I've at the conversion stage. So I still want to ready people to get to that point of purchase in the right mind, to assure them that they're in the right place, to continually attract that particular type of customer. But when you get to a product shot, some people, and I've seen this happen as well, that you might have 3 or 4 product shots followed by some model shots. So the jewelry on a model. That's about nudging again. So when you've looked at 4 images of the particular products, that's not quite enough. Then I'm going to reassure you again that you can have some model shots after that. So you can go really really finite detail with that. Product imagery shots, that's where it's converting. We have presented you to the point of purchase. You've done the hard work, but then it's about, okay, if the checkout's not happening, what have you got the data? Have you got that request for information? Are you forcing people to ask for a booking slot? Ask for something from you, some sort of free design guide or whatever it might be, in order for you to then say, well, this customer clearly thinks highly of us. There's the lead, and the imagery has been critical to that. I'm now going to go through a couple of examples of what people have done with their Find a Jeweler pages. So you could, if you're a retailer, put the storefront and provide some collections. A point of note with the Find a Jeweler, if it's on a mobile device, and more people are looking at this on a mobile device, that if you put too many shots on the gallery, then they have to scroll past that before they see your contact details. So it's sensible to update it regularly, but not have too many images on there. You might also choose to lead with a product shot, then have some of those shots on a model. I've also seen some members with the storefront actually have an inside the store shots as well, which is, I think, quite a good way of doing it. Again, it's back to your consistency. What is it? What are the 5 or 6 images, the about you? What is it about you that make you stand out? Because in this space, I referred before about social media and emails. You're competing with things that aren't in the jewelry industry. So you're competing with, on social, what someone's doing on a walk, or cat videos, or if it's in an email, somebody's Rightmove email, Rightmove notification, or a bill outstanding. Whereas here, people are already looking in the jewelry space, but then it's even more about that, what's standing out. So the about you shots are really, from my perspective, important here, as well as that mirroring. I want this type of customer to come, so therefore I'm putting this particular image within the page. And again, 4 or 5 is absolutely plenty. Another good example of a storefront image shot, really connecting with the prospective some person searching. And if you have not updated your member profile yet, this link here, this members area, that's where to do it. If there isn't a problem with logging in, if you fire an email into me and my colleagues, that's marketing@naj.co.uk. That's marketing@naj.co.uk. We'll be able to work with you to make sure those permissions all work out. But if you haven't yet updated that profile, it's really worth doing it. Okay. And then I said there was going to be an announcement. So yesterday, we announced that we would be hosting 16 seats in a Make Christmas Happen marketing program. So this uses some of the modules from the JET Business Development Program, and it also uses some extremely valuable support from the JBM facilitator, Michael Donaldson. It's a mentoring program, but it's also a development program in which there are courses for social media, masterclasses on Facebook advertising, for example, masterclasses on PR, also Jet Essential modules for sales assistants and sales teams to benefit from as well. It's a real inclusive program for only, stress this, only 16 seats available. The program is specifically targeted towards businesses that perhaps do not know what their Christmas campaign will look like this year because of the changing circumstances. It is perhaps not a case of rolling out what has been happening previously with events not being legible. People may have been considering something but not had a clear focus with their Christmas campaign. People might have already actioned their Christmas campaign, but deposits haven't started to roll in. It's expected that with John Lewis opening their Christmas store early, that Christmas is going to be, the festive buying period is going to start earlier and be more prolonged. And this program certainly aims to support jewelers through October, November and December to efficiently and effectively raise the profile of their business towards those target customers. You've got a link there, naj.co.uk/make it happen. I would encourage any interested parties to inquire as soon as possible. We've got a cut-off date of the 2nd of October, Friday the 2nd of October, and after that we are into the program. So this isn't necessarily just for the business owner, it is for the person in the business that is going to make it happen. So that might be somebody who has traditionally looked after the Christmas campaign. It might be somebody who, it could be the business owner, but it could be someone that the business is putting their, I suppose, their focus on to tap into this network to deliver it through. The final point I stress for this is it's a cohort, so it's a grouped activity. So not just with the mentoring one-on-one with Michael, there is also the opportunity to share insights, share experiences with other members of the cohort as well. So you do get an opportunity to benchmark and see what's happening. I suppose it is a flavour of the Jet Business Network, which is an extremely valuable member benefit. Probably one of the best kept secrets of the association, but given the circumstances with COVID, I do have to acknowledge Marie here, the head of education for NAJ, has put together a terrific program in a very, very short period of time, because we want to support members. So that's the announcement. That's that. And the final thing, this is where I bring Helen back in here. I'll just load up a different presentation so we can announce the winner.
Thanks, Ben. That was great. And just as I'm updating my website, that couldn't have been more timely.
Yes. Yeah. So well, if there's any questions, I'm quite happy to take those quickly.
I think some people are just apologising they've had to go, but of course they can watch this later, which is great. And I think a lot of people want to pick things up in bubbles.
Fantastic. Well, our winner of the champagne today is Jaisal from the Binar Jewelers. I think we got Jaisal with us.
Hey, very appreciative. And how is this drawn, Ben? Is this random? How is this criteria reached?
So you've got to stay till the end. That's the criteria. Right. You stay till the end, you're in the draw.
Right. Well, Jaisal's proved that, and he's obviously on the ball and responding very well. He's listening very acutely. That's brilliant.
That's it. So from one set of bubbles, I suppose to another set of bubbles, we'll just share the links again into the chat. So if by opening that link I've just dropped in there, the /bubble1, when you do open that, everybody, then it's a case of view it in your web browser. But before I sort of finish here, I just wanted to say thank you to Helen for hosting again a terrific session for us this morning. It is so useful to have the insight that you bring from what you do from a retail perspective, but also give us this sense of working together and collaboration, because I think that's extremely valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I love being with you all, so it's a real pleasure. So yeah, it's delightful that my waffling first thing has some relevance, so that's delightful for me. So I wish you all lots of fun and insights in the bubble, and I will hopefully see you all again soon. Ben, are we starting again in about 15:15? So 10-minute comfort break for everybody.
Well, if people can jump straight into that bubble link there. I'll loiter around for 5 minutes, while if there's any people struggling to get across into the bubbles, then if people can just jump onto the chat.
Great.
Any queries. Okay,
and I just think I'd like to conclude by saying about, who's available at the NAJ for support. There's yourself, Gary's been mentioned, Scott, you're just all an email, a phone call away, and I think there's lots of people who want to follow up with various people, so so that's great.
Yeah, you got details on there. I mean, Lindsay's will be in the bubble as well.
Right.
So there's there's certainly a number of member focused.
That's the fabulous
team. In addition to the education goals. Okay.
Great, and I will see you all again soon. Take care.